I get a lot of things tick me off as a sports fan that other sports fans do, because I'm such a snob about it. And one of the things is I hate when fans are like, "Oh, this player played point guard and didn't turn it over a lot. That player should be a coach." Or this player gets emotional. He should be a coach. I see him being a coach one day. I hate it because we have no idea as fans who should be coaches and who should not be. Like there's no real rhyme or reason to it. If you look at the history of, we'll stick with college basketball, like John Wooden was an All-American in college, becomes a great coach. Mike Krzyzewski played at Army, became a great head coach. So there's no one thing we can point to and be like, oh, because this guy does this, he'd be a great coach, right? The best coach in the history of football played center at Wesleyan in Division III and was more known for being a captain of the lacrosse team. So I just hate when fans throw that out there that, oh, this guy should be a coach. You don't know. You don't know. But every so often there are those players out there that you look at and everyone's like, from all we've heard, what we've seen and how their coach talks to them, maybe they should be a coach. And I have had this feeling for the first time with a Baylor basketball player this year. Jonathan Tchamwa Tchatchoua should be a basketball coach, preferably at Baylor. He has an innate knowledge for the game, and I think what's great about it is he is very naturally a student of the game because he hasn't been playing all that long when you take in his whole, 23, 24 years of life into account. He hasn't been playing all that long, but he's learned every step of the way. And Scott Drew has called him, one of his favorite ever players to coach. And I think that holds a lot of weight. And for us as fans, I mean, I think I speak for all of us Baylor fans by saying we cannot thank Jonathan Tchamwa Tchatchoua enough for his contribution to the program. He said it on senior night. He just says, I think I left this place a little bit better than I found it. And I can say unequivocally, Jonathan, you are exactly right. In fact, if you take into the context the years that he was here, and this is not a diss to anybody else, but the rise of the program since he got here, there are very few players in Baylor history that can say that more unequivocally than Jonathan can. Even the year he couldn't play, he was redshirting in 2019-20. All the guys on those teams were saying he helped us out immensely in practice. Freddie Gillespie was saying he helped me out in practice. And, all the stories where he was the one that got the guys out of their apartments and into the gym or working out outside when they needed to during COVID. He was the one that got everybody out there. And he is obviously an emotional leader for the team. It takes me back to those videos of when he could barely walk after that injury and he's sitting in a chair and putting up shots to stay fresh. And obviously his emotional return to come back from that injury that I think at the time, a lot of people doubted he could ever come back from. And then when you heard the stories afterwards, you were like, how on earth is this guy playing basketball? He came back from that in exactly a year, 52 weeks. That is incredible. So that shows already a commitment to the game that goes beyond even what the average college basketball player does, which, by the way, the average player has an incredible commitment to the game. But Jonathan Tchamwa Tchatchoua took it that extra step by working his way back, the walking miracle. And I think the thing that did it for me was actually also on that senior night before he made that announcement afterwards of like, hey, I hope I left it better than I found it. You did. You won a national championship, a couple Big 12 championships, Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. It was earlier that night on senior night where Baylor played one of its worst halves of the whole year. And we're lucky to only be down 9 against Texas. They had given up 49 points in that first half. And apparently, and I wish we had audio or video of this, Jonathan Tchamwa Tchatchoua was the one taking taking the podium, so to speak, in the locker room, urging his teammates on to get back in that game. And to a man, you could see that out there. You could see a possessed Baylor team, a much more motivated Baylor team, and they took it to UT in that second half. They came back and then some. They came all the way back and to the point where UT had to foul them at the end because Baylor was in complete control of that game. Jonathan Tchamwa Tchatchoua is the one who sparked that. And there was something that was caught by the Baylor Plus cameras. I believe it was after the Kansas game, which would have been the game before, where Scott Drew is calling out Everyday John in a good way in the locker room saying, hey, we needed John. We needed his help and his guidance. And then he says, and John, it's one thing for us, the coaches, to say it, but when your teammates are saying it, that they needed you and that you helped them, that's a whole nother thing. And that's what kind of does it for me. That's a guy who is obviously a great servant leader, and that's what a great coach should be. He fits all that mold. He's a learner, he is a teacher, he's got a ton of class and a ton of passion, and he just does things the right way. Anyone should want him to be a coach on their team because of all of those things. And I actually asked, when we were in Memphis, I asked Yves Missi. I said, hey, how was it like playing in your first tournament game? This is before the Clemson game. And, he said, it was a bit of an adjustment, but, I really liked it. And I said, how much has Jonathan helped you? He was in the locker right next to him. I said, how much has Jonathan helped you? And he says, he helps me every day. Like I wouldn't be able to be in the spot that I'm in, but for Jonathan Tchamwa Tchatchoua. He said he helps me and Josh O, immensely every day. And he has gotten us ready for every next opponent. He's gotten us ready for college basketball. He's gotten us ready for the Big 12, and he's certainly got us ready for the tournament. So his commitment this year, knowing that he wasn't going to play the minutes that he was able to in the past, Jonathan Tchamwa Tchatchoua essentially became a GA this year. So I hate when people just see a player and say, that guy's smart, he should be a coach. But no doubt in my mind, Jonathan Tchamwa Tchatchoua should be a basketball coach. And I'm hoping he's doing it at Baylor. I would not be surprised in the next couple of years if we see Jonathan Tchamwa Tchatchoua back on Scott Drew's bench, but wearing the quarter zip and leading Baylor to some high highs once again. And hopefully leaving the program, when he does eventually leave the program, even better than he found it once again. But that'll be a tough act to follow because he already did so much as a player.